we are operating under some kind of misconception about what gets you marks and stuff, right? Because we all have some preconceived notion. People tell us, school, college, teacher, everyone tell us stuff, right? So you must have noticed this. The kids who study the most do not necessarily score well in class. Okay, have you noticed like that? There are some kids in the class who study really hard and still don't score well. And then there are some people who are not even studying so cool. There are people who know 𝗪𝗏𝗴𝗋𝗔, they study really. But there are some people who don't even study and still score well, right? So everybody wants to be those kids, right? Who don't study, is partying, having great fun and still scoring so well, right? The primary reason for this failure was the thinking that I need to read more and know more about the subject to score well. Okay, so if I read Bangya and in contracts I did not score enough in contract 1, then in contract 2 I'll think, okay, maybe if I read Mulla and Mulla, then I will score more, right? This unfortunately does not work. Hello, wake up. If you're still thinking that, then you're lucky today. You are in today's session. We'll break your misconceptions and we'll tell you how to score well so that you never fall for this again. Okay, scoring well in exams is like boxing. The person with the most strength or stamina has no guarantee of winning. You need to understand the game and prepare to win, right? So just because you are the strongest person doesn't mean you'll win in a fight, right? If you get into a fight on the street and you might be very good at boxing, somebody picks up one brick and hits you on the head and you lose, right? Or somebody just runs away, you cannot fight with them. So you never know what's going to happen. An exam is also like that. So it took me 5 semesters and a different kind of education to figure out what it takes. Okay, I started ranking in the top 3 to 5 in my class despite studying a lot less. So in the beginning, I was trying to read every day. I was spending a lot of time in the library as a habit, and still I was not able to score. Okay, still I was not scoring, and I was decent in writing. I was using markers to highlight stuff and everything, like all the normal things you can think of. I scored well in boards exam. I know all that trick, right? I was not getting. So what the hell is going on here? But then later on, I started ranking. I topped in some subjects. Okay, I scored top marks, second top marks, and I was not even studying. I was studying for a few days before the exam, and I was still getting that kind of marks. Okay, so how is it happening? So what happened in between that caused this transformation? I learned about the 80-20 rule, Pareto Principle. Have you guys heard of the 80-20 rule? Have you ever heard of 80-20 rule? 80-20 rule is where you are, so there's this guy called Pareto, okay? And he found out that, there is this 80-20 rule. For example, 20% of the people in the country hold 80% of the wealth, and rest of the 80% people only own 20% of the wealth. Or then he found that out of all the factories, 20% is producing 80% of the goods sold, whereas the 80% of the other factories is only producing 20%. So basically, there are some super performers, right? Similarly, if you apply 80-20 rule to your own work, then you realize that 80% of your output is coming from only 20% of the effort. Rest of the 80% of your effort is bringing only 20% of your outcome. Okay, so if you realize this and you can identify which effort is leading to which outcome, right, then you will obviously focus on the 20% that is producing 80% of the output, 20% effort that is producing 80%. You will be focusing on that 20%, right, and ignore the 80%. So you are doing 80% work. Now consider that when you are preparing for exams, there is 80% of your effort is useless. It is not producing enough results, but you are still doing that work like crazy, and you are getting tired doing that, and then only 20% of the effort is producing the result. I'll give you an example. Imagine that you are trying. There is a beginning of the semester. There's a way to study, right? So you are trying to read the textbook from cover to cover, and you start reading one page and you try to read it thoroughly. You are like marking, underlining, and you read 10 pages, then you get bored, and then or something happens, you get distracted. And if you go to a hostel room Okay, I have done this experiment and you can do it if you don't believe me. Go to a hostel where people have their books, right? Pick up any textbook. You will see the first 20 pages have been crumpled and they're read. You can understand these 20 pages have 30 pages have been read. The rest of the book will be like virgin white paper. Nothing has been read from those pages. Okay. How many of you relate to this? How many of you have seen this? This is the starting before the when the when the semester is starting, right? Now what happens is that you have read, you have tried doing all this work and you have spent a lot of time, you have made notes. Okay, beginning of the semester, you're like, this semester, I'm going to study so hard. I'm going to study every day. I'm going to do so much. And then you start writing notes, right? And you are writing notes and for the first chapter, and you are, you want to be as detailed as possible. You want to work as much as possible. And then you make your everything so complicated, and somewhere after 7 days, all this effort is gone, right? Then life happens and shit happens. And then before the exam, 2 days before the exam, you sit down with books, you find the most simple textbook, maybe a 𝗪𝗶𝗴𝗹 or some kind of 𝗥𝗲𝗃 or whatever, I don't know. There are different parts of the country, people call it differently. So you get those books, okay, and class notes, xeroxed, hastily xeroxed from some friend, and then some past year's papers, and in 2 days you stay up all night and you read as much as possible. 2 days is also more. Some people study for only 1 day, right? So, or even one few hours, and then you have read like 5-6 like 50-60% of the syllabus, right? And then you are very worried. But if you go and write the exam and you score 70-80-60%, I don't know, whatever, right? Whatever you score, but it is out of that 2 days effort that actually happened. Achha, these days people watch YouTube videos also, right? So in our time, this was also not there. But this is that 20%, guys, that 20% thing that produced 80% of your result. Probably it is not even 80-20, it is 95-5, 5%. Okay, 5% of your result is produced by all that 95% work you did for the semester, and then 5%, which is like your 5% of your semester you studied something, and that produces all the results, and that will be responsible for you graduating from law school, getting a degree and everything, right? Okay, so this is Pareto principle. The idea is to, this is a mind change. If you really get Pareto principle, if you really get 80-20 rule, you start thinking that, boss, is that 95% anyway relevant? Right? Or is that 80% that produces only 20%? If I just eliminate it from life, kitna jhamela khatam, right? Then I can only focus on what matters. Maybe in the beginning of the semester, I'll read that 𝗥𝗃𝗃 and I'll read that whatever past year's papers and notes. I can get notes from seniors and read it in the beginning of the semester instead of reading it end of the semester just before the exam, right?